Saudi Arabia is a challenge. It's a country I think a lot of people know very little about.
The principal area focus of our work has been the justice system. The use of the words justice system are really oxymoronic in the Saudi context because really there's neither justice nor is there really a system.
Saudi Arabia has no penal code. In some way the entire justice system in Saudi Arabia relies on religious law. What that means is that it's up to the religious police to determine whether illegal mingling between a man or woman amounts to a crime or not. For me, the rule of law is quite central to the human rights problematics in Saudi Arabia. If you can't go to a court of law and ask for redress, then you're in a completely arbitrary system. And that is often where Saudi Arabia is today.
There have been a number of cases where the people have suffered, horrible, horrible crimes they've been victims of, where the justice system, rather than providing them any sense of remedy or relief, has turned the system against them. The by now infamous case of the girl of Qatif is a good example of that. This young woman and a man, a friend of hers, whom she had been talking to privately in a car, were both gang raped by 7 men. And the court, rather than convicting these rapists of this brutal crime, in fact didn't convict them of rape. They convicted them only of kidnapping, and in fact sentenced the woman to multiple lashes.
In Saudi Arabia, a young woman was brutally gang raped. Then the tables of justice were turned against her, as she was punished by a court for violating that country's strict Islamic law.
That just shocked everybody, that she could possibly have done anything wrong in this case. That's where Abdulrahman Al-Lahim came in. Abdulrahman is a pioneer. He's the only human rights lawyer in that country. He's the first person who is taking the law extremely seriously. And he's the only person who is suing the government, especially the religious police. Nobody else is doing this kind of thing. The Saudi way of doing things is keeping quiet. He's not about that. He's about justice for all. Of course, people have come out and said, you've become a traitor to the religion, you've become a traitor to your country. Whereas he says, no, these things should be openly discussed.
Judges will sometimes try to keep him out of the courtroom entirely, and in fact will arbitrarily imprison him for trying to take on a case and defend a case and talk about a case publicly.
When he defended the girl of Qatif, Abdulrahman wrote the appeal against the 90 lashes, and because Abdulrahman and the courageous young woman from Qatif who'd been raped spoke out to the media about the injustice, the appeals court came back and doubled the sentence to 200 lashes. It was sort of adding punishment just for speaking to Human Rights Watch, speaking to the media. Abdulrahman was heavily attacked. Even Saudi media started to talk about it. The case became such a big case that President Bush, other international leaders spoke out against it, and indeed about a month later King Abdullah issued a pardon.
The Saudi government does care about how it is perceived in the international community, does care when organizations like ours say that their policies, their practices, and their laws violate human rights.
We work both together and in sequence, I would say. He goes first and sees what he can do. If he's up against a wall, then we maybe step in and say that this verdict is against human rights, is outrageous, and we ask the king to issue a pardon. The lesson is that, if there are people courageous enough to speak out and can bear the threats, can bear the pressure, if you can bear that, then you have hope of getting the attention of Saudi Arabia's supreme leadership.
Despite the setbacks he's faced, despite the fact that he's been imprisoned and spent months in solitary confinement, despite that, he continues to do what he does, which is to say, I believe in the law and I'm going to fight for the law and I'm going to fight for people's rights as long as I can.